Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each of the episodes against each other. And today's episode is Merlin Season 5, Episode 8, With All My Heart. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So we begin the episode with Gwen sneaking out of the castle and meeting with Morgana in order to deliver her inside information so that she can attack Arthur. And unbeknownst to her, behind the trees, Arthur and Merlin are spying on her, and this shows Arthur that Gwen has betrayed them. However, he's of course devastated, and Merlin says that they're going to try whatever they can to fix her because obviously Morgana must have used dark magic. And in order to facilitate curing Gwen, Merlin goes to visit the Dockrade, which we had seen in a previous episode was visited by Morgana and is on Morgana's side. He goes as Dragoon the Great because he doesn't want the Dockrade to know his true identity. And upon entering, the Dockrade does identify him as Emrys, though not Merlin, and she basically is like, "You're an enemy of the old religion. You're not welcome here. I'm not going to tell you anything." He then pulls out Excalibur and basically with Excalibur cuts off one of her arms and says like, "I have the means to kill you. This was forged in a dragon's breath. You tell me what I want to know. I'm not leaving without it." And so she then does give him the cure, which is to go to a cauldron where the White Goddess's powers are strongest. And if Gwen enters willingly and a sorcerer says the correct words and casts the right spell, then the White Goddess will cure and bring back Gwen's soul, because right now she's an empty vessel under the control of Morgana. He then goes to leave peacefully. She shoots a dagger at him. He then cuts off her other arm, but doesn't have the foresight to kill her. And he ends up leaving, returning to Camelot. He then reveals the information to Gaius, who gives him a potion that will put Gwen to sleep and 2 drops every 2 hours for the next 3 days in order to get her to the cauldron so that they can convince her to enter the cauldron willingly. And in order to facilitate, of course, the cure, they need a sorcerer, and Merlin can't reveal himself. Arthur doesn't trust Dragoon because, he failed to cure Uther. And so Gaius decides that the sorcerer that he got this time was actually a sorceress and that it was a woman, so that means that Merlin unfortunately has to go and dress up as a woman. In addition, he also takes an aging potion with him. Anyways, they head towards the cauldron, and as they're on their way there, the Dockrade, who was not killed as she should have been, unfortunately, decides to send a message to Morgana that they're going to cure Gwen, and so she goes to try to stop them. At first, she sends Aethusa after them, but Merlin is a dragon lord, and so Aethusa then has to turn back. Morgana then comes out to attack herself, and Mordred also had noticed them being suspicious and followed them when Merlin was trying to get Gwen out of the castle on basically like a well, it's not like a wheelbarrow because there's no sides to it. And I know there's a word for what it is. I can't remember what it is at the moment, but it's similar to a wheelbarrow. There was one wheel, then there was a place for like the feet, like a straight board for the feet, and then she was laying on her back on another straight board. Anyways, she's covered in a sheet. They're trying to get her out without anybody noticing that they're basically taking the sleeping queen out of the castle. And Mordred notices one of her hands fall out from under the sheet, gets suspicious, follows them. And luckily he did because he's able to confront Morgana and allow them to get to the cauldron in time. Merlin then goes and transforms into the old woman, and as he's going there, he drops his dress. And so to cover that, he tells Arthur that the payment for the Dolma's help is a dress. And so he then goes, dresses as the Dolma, which Mordred realizes it's him because he knows magic, but doesn't say anything. Merlin then casts the spells that he needs to. Gwen is saved, and then in the end, the Dolma, or Merlin, as the old woman, says that in thanks, he can remember that magic can be used for good things as well, as it has saved his wife and his love, etc. And then she, of course, leaves. Merlin makes his way back. They then head back to Camelot, and Mordred promises to keep Merlin's secret, that he was the Dolma, and says that it's something that they have in common, as they both care about Camelot. And that is what happened in the episode. So now that we've been reminded what happens, we'll now rank the episode first on the mostly objective ranking list, which uses set values to determine the score, but bias and judgment can still apply, and then the personal ranking list, where it's based on opinion and entertainment value. So on our mostly objective rank values, we have the single episode supporting character introduction, and that is the Dolma. Now, I counted Dragoon the Great as a separate character. I counted Morgana's aged form of Hilda as a separate character, so to stay consistent, I have decided to give Dolma her own character, even though it is Merlin disguised as an old woman. And this is the only time he does that, so single episode supporting character introduction plus 1 point. Then we have the multi-season supporting character development, which is Gwen being freed from her brainwashing through the cauldron, and she goes into the cauldron willingly to follow Arthur, who professes his undying love and calls her his heart, and so on and so forth, and she goes into the water after him, ending up cured in the end, worth 3 points, bringing us to 4 so far. And then we have the world building elements, which is where we learn that the ritual Gwen underwent in the Dark Tower was called the Tiendiaga, and the only way to dispel it is to go to the cauldron of, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, but Arianrhod, and summon the White Goddess, as the White Goddess's powers can move through the waters and heal Gwen. However, Gwen has to go in willingly, because if they should trick her or force her, her soul will forever be lost to them, and she will remain a empty shell under the control of Morgana indefinitely until Morgana no longer needs her, in which case then the shell will also be abandoned. And that's also, because it's world building, worth 4 points, which brings this episode to an 8 out of 10 total. And with it being an 8 out of 10, that brings our ranking so far to, in first, Arthur's Bane, the Death Song of Uther Pendragon, the Desir, the Hollow Queen. With All My Heart, this episode is in fifth, followed by Another Sorrow. The Dark Tower and A Lesson in Vengeance is in last place. Now, for my personal ranking, I did think that this episode was very entertaining. I think it's finally there was the relief of them figuring out and confirming 100% on Arthur's part that Gwen is brainwashed and working against him, and so that we know it's going to be resolved and it is out in the open, which is great. We then have the comedic moments of that, again, it's not a wheelbarrow, but I can't think of what it's called at this particular moment. But either way, she's taken out of the castle on a wheelbarrow-esque device, and it is funny because they look suspicious, and then Merlin's having to like basically carry this thing, and he has trouble with it, especially in the forest, showing up late, and then they're like, why did it take you so long? Then there's the whole drama with Morgana and Mordred having their confrontation, which I think is important, especially given where it's going in the future. So kind of like a bit of a foreshadow, a hint. Um, Now, I do understand that the Dolma was also really funny, and I do also like how because he dropped the dress, that became the payment for the dolma, and then when Arthur's asking how he can thank them, he offers to buy her a dress, and Gwen gives him like a look like, why would you offer a dress? And he's like, she likes clothes. But obviously then he Merlin tells him, to keep in mind that magic can be good and that there could be potentially a place for it in the future, as it saved his wife, which is great, which basically the doors that he had closed himself in the past kind of get opened a little bit here because he does say that, so that's good. However, I am a strong sufferer of secondhand embarrassment. I don't need to be the person acting embarrassed to be mortified on behalf of other people. That's the one thing that my empathy is really strong with is embarrassment. Like if people are doing things that I would deem very embarrassing, I feel that viscerally even when it's not me doing it. So secondhand embarrassment for me is a big thing. And I was mortified by Merlin having to pretend to be a woman as the Dalma. And even though Arthur was completely fooled by this, Mordred wasn't. And Mordred being the semi-enemy just makes it even more embarrassing that he has this memory in his head, and I was just like, oh, I never really enjoy that. Luckily, you can fast forward through these types of parts, and I did put it on 2 times speed because I was like, gotta get this over with. I understand the comedic aspect of it, and I did find it funny while I was mortified by it, but I was also secondhand embarrassment, which is a negative emotion, which I did not want to feel or enjoy feeling. So I did have to take points from that. But I do like that this episode did conclude that kind of Gwen being brainwashed, which will then open up for like the true finale to come through in the future. And it again had a lot of entertainment value and entertaining moments, which I appreciated as well because honestly, this show is always my favorite when it's funny. When it tries to get too serious, I just feel like it's not living up to its potential. But when it has those comedic moments and it does take the time to be fun, that is when I like it best. So, because of that, I did give it an 8 out of 10. I took points for the secondhand embarrassment, but I gave a lot of points for the entertainment value. And so, with our personal ranking, that brings Arthur's Bane to first, Another Sorrow in second. This episode came in third, With All My Heart, followed by The Death Song of Uther Pendragon, The Hollow Queen, A Lesson in Vengeance, The Dark Tower, and in last place is The Desir. And that now brings us to the series ranking so far. And for the mostly objective ranking, we have season 4 in first, followed by season 2, season 3, and then season 1 in fourth. Season 5 so far has a score of 62 out of a possible 110. Meanwhile, on the personal ranking side, we have season 4 in first, followed by season 3, season 2, and season 1. Season 5 currently has a score of 58 out of a possible 110. But with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Merlin Season 5, Episode 8 with all my heart. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.